Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, Peter George.
When we think of public speakers, we might not include teachers, but we should. Teachers present more often than those in just about any other profession. They present to their major audience, their students, 5 days a week for 3/4 of the year. On top of that, they often present in meetings, whether it's school-related or otherwise. In this episode, you're going to hear Megan Sweet talk about how her experience as a teacher has helped her become a more effective public speaker. Let me tell you a little bit about Megan. She's an expert in leading community-driven education transformation in high-need schools and districts. And with more than 25 years of experience in education, and 15 years directly leading changes in schools, districts, and statewide in California, she knows that education is the most important lever we have for creating a more equitable society. She knows that the best way to realize true change is by supporting and empowering individuals. Through her experience as a teacher and community leader, Megan has developed powerful public speaking skills, and she's here to share with you what she has learned over the years and how you can hone your skills as an impactful and inspiring public speaker. Here's my conversation with Megan Sweet. Hi, Megan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Peter, for having me.
Megan, when we think of public speakers, teachers don't necessarily come to mind, but they should. And as a teacher, what skills have you developed that prepare you for public speaking?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was a teacher myself and as an educator, I didn't think that I had public speaking skills either. And the only time I discovered it was actually within the last few years when I've been working with other people, taking classes with others where we've been learning how to present material in front of an audience, that I noticed how far ahead I was of my peers or in my capacity to do that. And when I reflected on it, it makes a ton of sense, which is that from the very beginning, your first day teaching, you're standing in front of a public group of people. There might be children, they might be young adults, but you're actually public speaking from the very first moment you step into a classroom. And you do that the whole time. So you have to manage a lot of things that you would do as a public speaker when you're in a classroom, understanding your presentation style, moderating your voice, preparing your comments, dealing with the unexpected that always comes up when you're speaking or when you're teaching school, and getting used to having people look at you and listen to you. So I think when you're a young teacher, or a teacher in general, but you develop it at such a young age, you just get used to standing in front of people and you don't get that kind of stage fright that I think others do that haven't been speaking for a long time. But if you've been in education, you've been in front of a stage, from the beginning. So it actually becomes a little bit like second nature for us educators.
You do it right from the start as an assistant.
You don't have a choice. So you figure it out.
When it comes to preparing for giving a talk, everybody does it differently. How do you prepare?
I think for a while, I tried to develop notes, and I'm actually having this opportunity now I'm an elected school board member where I live. And for a while I was typing up, even though I know how to be a public speaker and I felt confident, I was typing up my comments that I would make before I presented in front of the school board because I was nervous. It was a new platform and new requirements. And I heard how different it sounded to me than when I just spoke naturally. So I think, what I do to prepare is really just get clear on what I want to say, what the essence is that I want to say without writing down the words. Because some people can read like prepared statements and they sound really good at it. But I think it comes down to knowing your own style. And for me, if I feel bound by statements or words, it actually really throws me off. So I've had to learn to just be comfortable with some bullet points and the main ideas and trust that what I will say will come out the way I want to say it, but not get so caught up in specific phrases or, getting really cute about it, just really trying to put my main idea out there. And when I do that, I'm able to connect in with my heart and my intentions a lot more. And then it comes across much more genuine. And I think it lands a lot better. So for me, I think through my thoughts. I have I always kind of have a running list of things that I want to say. I go back and I review them and I come up and pull out the main points. And then I just trust that when the moment comes, I'll be able to say the right thing.
I get asked a lot, how are you supposed to memorize a whole speech? And I tell them, you're not supposed to.
Well, in public speakers, they have teleprompters and all these things that make it a lot easier, which we don't get to see, right? So if you're comparing yourself to Obama or someone who's like a really eloquent public speaker, they're good at, but they also have a lot of help behind the scenes that us average folks don't tend to have.
It's amazing how many people don't realize that those two large pieces of glass on either side of a president or other important speaker are teleprompters.
That's right. It's not like a food guard or something. It's like a real thing.
A few minutes ago, when you were talking about getting up in front of a classroom, you mentioned that you have to handle the unexpected. And anybody who's spoken enough knows that stuff happens. How do you handle the unexpected?
I've actually had the opportunity, I will say, to speak to a lot of really angry crowds, actually. So in my work as doing school reform work, which is what I'm trained in, there have been many, many occasions at this point where I've needed to stand in front of people and speak hard truths to them, telling them that they're going to close their school or that their school that they know and love is going to go through a change. So I've had to prepare for this unexpected all the time because you never quite know how people are going to hear that news and whether or not it's going to land appropriately. So I think the first thing is I actually meditate before I go up in front of a group of people, or at least try and center myself in some way. So I don't try and run into any kind of space when I'm speaking without having at least settled myself down first. And what that helps me do is it helps me remember why I'm there. So I will settle myself down and remind myself, what's the main thing I want to have come out of this event? Usually it's, I want to connect with the audience. I want to hear them. And I want to tell the information I need to tell with as much honesty and integrity as I can. That's usually the main things that I always want to say when I'm either being interviewed by someone like you or standing in front of a group of people. So when I remind myself of that, that's helpful. The second thing that I do is I just really try and continue to stay in what I know is true and be grounded and listen well. Because when the unexpected things happen, whether it's like someone being angry or I'm giving the example of someone being angry, so I'll give you that one first and then I'll go to the other unexpected. If someone's angry or expressing displeasure with something that I'm saying, that's important information and feedback for me. So almost always the way I treat it is not as an attack, but just with some curiosity. So I want to hear what they have to say and I want to listen really well. And usually what I then do is I repeat it back. And often I don't have anything more to say than that, but mostly people just want to be heard. So I think when you're dealing with hecklers, listening well and just validating what someone has to say without shutting them down, I think is a really helpful stance. I've also had every single other thing under the sun happen in terms of public speaking. I've found myself standing in front of like all of my mentors and trying to talk in front of people that I know and respect really well. Lots of technology glitches. And generally the way I handle those is just with a sense of humor and not trying to take myself too seriously. So, if the technology breaks, just being light about it. And everybody's had that experience. So I don't need to take it so hard and get really rattled by that there's no real need to do that. I often will say if I'm in front of a group of people that are intimidating, I'll honor who's in the room and just name how they've impacted my life so that they feel seen. And it gives me a chance to also let them know that I see them. So yeah, humor, trying to connect with the audience and just staying curious and open because it's whenever there's people involved and technology involved, control generally goes out the window. So just riding with it.
I would imagine that as a teacher, you had baptism by fire because who knows what's going to happen in a classroom.
Right. Yeah, that's really true. And actually, I remember before I started my first day in the classroom, and I was 21, so I was a baby, and I was asking my professor, I was like, I had the laundry list, probably every public speaker has, like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if, I had the whole thing. I'm like, what if a kid stands up on their desk and refuses to listen to me? Like I had all these nightmare scenarios in my mind. And he was like, well, that's probably not going to happen. So it's okay. Let it go. And that really helped me. Okay, all these worries. And I just started telling myself that that's probably not going to happen. And yeah, when you learn to deal with and come across the unexpected and you live through that, then you have that lived knowledge that you can do that. So I think, again, for educators, we on a daily basis have unexpected things happen. Kids say things you don't expect, do things you don't expect. I've had classroom fights. I've had kids hit me. I had a child actually when I was teaching on the West Coast who threw up on me while I was teaching class, and I had to keep going, right? Like it just happens. So trying to stay calm, remember that you're controlling the room. And also every time you get through one of those moments, then you know you can do it. And the more often you kind of face the unexpected and survive, then those things stop being such a big barrier because we know we can survive them, and then it's okay.
Now, as a public speaker, as opposed to a teacher, how did you come to find your voice and your message?
A little bit was over time. I think for me, I was a teacher for a long time, and then I stood in front of people and I did these school changes. And what I started to notice was just my own personal, what was the dialogue happening inside of my mind versus the one that I was needing to say out loud. And I very kind of quickly became clear on what my message was, which was around my main message that I share with everybody in my public speaking events is around a lot of what we've been talking about here, believing in yourself, being calm, connecting in with your own kind of insight in your knowledge base, and being natural and authentic, which is, I think, the things that have made me the most successful. I've also had lots of people who have given me feedback that's helped me. So I didn't know as early on and when I was speaking, how I was connecting with other people or what the impact was. But I've had the gift of people giving me feedback that have helped me to understand, oh, they really like that I feel grounded and down to earth. They really like that I feel accessible. Oh, I can do more of that, so I don't have to lean on this formal stuff because I'm getting some positive feedback. So for me, getting clear on what felt most important to me, most important on how I wanted to express myself, and then listening to that feedback and always staying curious. I notice when I hear my own podcast and other things, when I'm feeling uncertain, the word comes in a lot. So I'm also just noticing my own little tics and patterns and starting to work with them. So listening to and watching yourself speak, while it can be really hard to do, I think is also a really powerful way to start getting clear on your message and how to express it.
I agree with you. My clients are always nervous the first time I put them on video. And then after that, they're very eager to see more video because they learn what a great tool it is. And the feedback that you get from that is amazing. It's second to none as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's what athletes do, right? So if you imagine and you want to get really good at being a public speaker, you have to watch video of yourselves. You have to listen to yourself. And that's what athletes do, Steph Curry from the Warriors is my main team out here in California for basketball. He's voracious around watching himself and then improving and seeing those little micro adjustments you can make. And so just doing that with the eye for improvement rather than being critical, I think is really helpful.
Megan, public speaking skills can be utilized in many ways in our lives. How do you use your skills off the stage?
I've had teams for a long time. So a couple of places where I've been using it lately, which might not be as obvious to others. Number one is with my team a lot. So I have a team of 25 people and they live across the country. And so those moments when I speak with them on Zoom or in presentations are golden because we're not around each other all the time. So those times when we're on Zoom calls matter. So I think my ease with talking, my interest and curiosity in what they have to say, and my ability to kind of roll with whatever comes next, all those things have really come into play a lot around my interactions with my staff. Another place where I've used it a lot are in interviews. My organization attributes my public speaking to our ability to get a huge grant recently, because I was just able to convey our ideas and what's important about the organization in a succinct and clear way. And I was just comfortable talking. I was comfortable addressing their questions. And it conveyed that comfort and that confidence to the grant funders. And they gave us a nice amount of money to work with. So that's helpful. So those are two ways that I use it.
Hey, Megan, it's been a pleasure to have you here and speak with you. And I'm sure our listeners want to learn more about you and how you might be able to help them. Where can they do that?
Thank you for asking. The best place to find me is on my website, or you can find me on Twitter or Instagram and all those places. I wrote a book, and so the website is related to that book, and it's called Your Three Eyes. So you can find my website is your3eyes.com. That's YOUR, the number 3, EYES.com. And then on Twitter and Instagram, it's Your 3 Eyes. And yeah, I love supporting people around some of these the internal work you need to do to feel comfortable talking to others. And, school change is my passion. So if anybody has school change things that they're wondering about, I'd be happy to give some insights there.
I have to believe there's a lot of school change going on around the country, especially through and after COVID.
This is the time for sure.
Thanks very much, Megan.
Thank you, Peter.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in Monday when you'll hear another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George, and again Thursday for your next episode of Quick Bites, public speaking tips and techniques you can digest in 5 minutes or less. Until next time, remember, when it comes to speaking in public, you've got this.